burnt sienna. It's quite a stormy looking sky. I masked off, first of all, the horizon, and I've just put in a bit of a sea blue, started at the top, and then I've just, that was done on dry paper, so I've just painted across the top, and then I've blended it down by cleaning the brush, taking the excess water off, and pulling the paint down towards the edge here. And then what I've done is I've put some burnt sienna with a little bit of, raw sienna with a little bit of burnt sienna in, just for the beach. Again, I've put the strongest colour at the front, the foreground, and then I've just blended it away up towards the edge of the sea. So we've got in, and then once it's dried, I've removed all the masking fluid. So you can see we've got the basis there, and this will probably turn into a larger project with some more details in it, and obviously painted on a bigger scale and with a few more colours involved. But just for now, I just want to show you the credit card. Right, so we've got two cliffs, distant hills and cliffs, whatever you want to call them. We've got the foreground one, which is going to be the darker one, and then we've got one here, which is going to be slightly lighter. So we're going to start with the lighter one. So the colours that I've mixed up for this are, I've just put some French ultramarine with a little bit of burnt sienna, and I've watered it right down. So again, the pigment, all the pigments have split. So you've got the burnt sienna and the ultramarine there. So what you need to do before you use it is give it a good stir. Now this is fairly thin paint because we're going to paint the distant one first. Okay, so I want it to be light and a bit cooler. Okay, so that's that one. And then what I've done is I've mixed up similar mixture here, but darker and a bit thicker. So it's exactly the same colours. It's a bit more of a lilac-y colour there. So I've just a touch more burnt sienna in there. Okay, so that's just a bit stronger grey. And then we've got, made it even stronger there just for effect on top and thicker. Okay, like we did with the rocks previously. Okay, so it's going to be quite straightforward. So the first one I'm going to do is the distant one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this colour. I'm really mixing it up so the pigments are back mixed up together. And then I'm just going to roughly, in fact we can go over all of them for this. Okay, so I'm just putting a thinner coat on down here. I'm trying to pull it in the direction of foam, which obviously is going to be, I'm chosen for my cliffs to go this way. Okay, so I'm painting the colour on. Across the bottom, and again on this paper we are using the Arches 300 GSM rough, purely for the paper surface, so it gives us a little bit of texture on there. So again, pull it down towards the shape of four. Straighten the edge up there. Okay. So firstly, for the smaller one on this end, I'm just going to use my card again. I've got the rounder edge there, and then all I'm going to do is put the pressure, so you can see it bending, and I'm just going to pull it down that way there. And there we've got the initial cliff, which is very light. So then we need to concentrate now on this section, which is going to be the one which is nearer to us. So it's going to be a lot darker in colour. So I'm going to put in, I'm going to use the number 10 because it's not quite that big, it's only a small piece. So I'm going to use some of this slightly darker mix. I'm going to put some of this on and down the bottom. You're going to paint on your brush. Okay. Doing this quite dry at the moment. Being careful to just go up to that because we want a clean edge on there. Okay. Again, pulling it down in the line shape of four. Okay, right. And I'm leaving it, it's got a bit of dry brush texture to it, which is fine. Because I say we want the surface to... So that's that bit, and then all I'm going to do is this really, the dark mixture that we used before, really thick, more or less. Well, it's like a buttery mix. And I'm going to put this along the top and down the bottom. So I'm covering the whole area of this with the real thick mixture. Okay. Again, following the direction of form. Careful at the edge of there. Okay, clean the brush. Take the excess off. Okay, that's there. So now I'm going to work from this edge, and then so we get a nice clean edge there. So come down. And there you see we've got the texture. And you've got a little bit of shadow at the bottom there, which you can. There we go. Okay, so again you can see what's happened is we've pulled the paint off and it's worked with the surface of the paper, which is a rough texture. And so some of the paint has clung to it and some of it has come off. If you want to take more off in certain areas, you can. Give it a little bit of shape. Like that. Okay. And there you've got it. So you've got this one, which is light, which we just pulled down quickly. So that, now we've done this one, you can see it's pushing this one further back into the distance, giving you a bit more of a 3D effect. Now, like I say, I'm going to do something like this on a bigger scale, on a full sheet. I'll probably do that tomorrow. But what we'll do is we'll add a few more colours in it, a few more details in it. But we will use this technique for the hills. And we'll probably tidy this little area up a little bit more. Now, just before we finish, there is going to be one thing. We should have some shadows down here, or reflections, to show that the water is coming up onto the beach. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to use a small flat brush. And I'm going to actually wet, this was dry, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet this area here. That's between the sand and the sea there. I'm just going to wet it and let it fall down there a little bit. Okay, up to just past where these hills are. And then I'm going to pick up the very light colour that we used there first. And using a flat brush, this one is it's a 12mm. This one, it's only a smaller sheet. We would use normally a bigger one. So what you're looking at is we're actually going to produce some of these reflections so that you can see this as water. So if you just roughly pull it down all the way up there. In other words, you're doing vertical strokes like that, down, up here as well. Okay. Like that. Tidy that edge up a bit there. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is, the next one was the darker colour, so make that colour what we've just had a little bit stronger. And then if you see where this one comes down, again, make sure they are perfectly vertical strokes. Just pull them down like that. Okay. And then maybe just a little bit, just at this end here, make it a little bit darker. because reflections are always mirror images. So if you've got the dark bit there, so that's the darkest edge of the cliff, it's going to be on this side here, nearest to the beach or the sea. Okay, so again, paint it across if you want, and then what we do is clean the brush down a bit, take the excess off, and then just literally pull that down. Probably make it a little bit darker. There we go. So we now have some reflections from the cliff edges. Okay, just going to clean that off, take the excess water out. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to, using the edge of the brush, taking all the excess out, squeeze the water out, then I'm just going to give it a little bit of, just going to lift a little bit of the colour out. And just put a few little, take a few bits out there. So you can see that it does look like a bit more like water. There we go. And there we go, that's finished. Okay, so I'm just going to dry this off, and then we'll take the tape off and you can get a better look. If you've got any suggestions that you want me to put in the picture when we do it as a full size picture, that's fine. It would maybe slightly different, be a bit more detail in there, and obviously we'll take a bit more time with it, but we will do something more or less similar to this for tomorrow. Okay, so I'm just going to dry this off and then we can have a look at it. Right then, I've removed the tape. So as you can see, there we go. You can see how the texture and everything of the paper has helped with the card. Because of the surface of the paper is rough, it's given us some texture and some depth into those hills. We've got the reflections there. That was the rocks that we did earlier, fully dried. And as you can see, I've added a little bit more shadow in there, that's all. You can alter these colours so they're a little bit stronger, depending on where the rocks are based, if they're near water or if they're just, you know, there might be winter ones where you could have some white around them. But it's just to give you an idea of what you can do with a little piece of card and some paint. Okay, so that's those two. I've got one more to show you today, and then as I say, I'm going to set out a project tomorrow, and we can hopefully carry on with the project, which will show us some skies, which we've already done, and then we're going to use this technique with the card to create some cliffs or some rocks like this. We may even put some rocks in on the sand, so you're adding the rocks in as well. And I'll also explain a bit more about how we do the sea. But you've got the basic techniques there to start and produce, you know, a basic painting. And practice it till the techniques come to you as second nature. And then when you do start to paint from photographs, you can plan your picture. Most of the preparation is planning, and that's most of the work that goes into a painting. And if it's planned correctly, when you actually come to paint it, it should just flow through. You shouldn't have to keep stopping and thinking, oh, how can I do this? What technique do I do for that? If you practice them enough, you will also be able to pick up from a photograph, right, I can use that technique for that section of the painting. I'll use this technique for that section. And you should be able to your work method will be a lot smoother flowing, and you should be able to produce some really good pictures. But as I say, it just takes practice. Okay, so we'll do the last piece in a minute, and then, as I say, I'll get on with the project and we'll start a full project tomorrow. Okay, I'll see you in a minute when we're ready for the third piece.